to me, and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
funding. Yes, and it's all the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be.
Gets hit by it.
Correct. So I'm all over that, and I spoke to Alan about it. When it comes time for the financing, which will be,
Listen, what financing?
we'll have to pay you. So
I'll pay the cash.
no. I got no.
Michael, thank you for doing this.
George, good to see you.
Emotional day in court yesterday, and I was struck by that line you had. You said you felt like you have your freedom back.
Yes.
How does it feel today?
Like I have my freedom back. Though I have to be honest, it's been very rough, to be before the court with my family in attendance, my mother, my father, my wife, my children, my sisters, my brother, my niece, cousins, friends. It was a very rough day.
And then you wake up today, and the president's tweeting from very early in the morning. Several different things. What struck me most is his claim that you agreed to this plea deal for this reason. He said those charges were just agreed to by him in order to embarrass the president and get a much reduced prison sentence.
I know which tweets you're talking about. First of all, it's absolutely not true. I did not do it to embarrass the president. He knows the truth. I know the truth. Many people know the truth. Under no circumstances do I want to embarrass the President of the United States of America. The truth is, I told the truth. I took responsibility for my actions. And instead of him taking responsibility for his actions, what does he do? He attacks my family. And after yesterday, again, being before the court and taking the responsibility and receiving a sentence of 36 months, the only thing he can do is to tweet about my family.
He said in the tweets, he repeated in an interview later on, that basically he says, his claim, you're lying about him to protect your wife, to protect your father-in-law.
Inaccurate. He knows the truth. I know the truth. Others know the truth. And here is the truth. The people of the United States of America, the people of the world, don't believe what he's saying. The man doesn't tell the truth. And it's sad that I should take responsibility for his dirty deeds.
Let me tell you the other thing. His father-in-law is a very rich guy, I hear. His father-in-law, I thought, was the guy that was the primary focus. Well, what did he do? Did he make a deal to keep his father-in-law out? Did he make a deal to keep his wife, who supposedly, maybe I'm wrong, but you can check it. Did he make a deal to keep his wife out of trouble? Now, how many people, when they say, listen, if you embarrass the President of the United States, we'll give you a deal. Your father-in-law, your wife, we'll cut you jail. That's all it is. It's a terrible system we have. It's going on right now with General Flynn.
You lied for him for a long time.
More than 10 years.
Why?
Out of loyalty. Out of loyalty to him. I followed a bad path, and hence how we started this conversation. I have my freedom, and I will not be the villain, as I told you once before. I will not be the villain of his story.
He's saying very clearly that he never directed you to do anything wrong. Is that true?
I don't think there's anybody that believes that. First of all, nothing at the Trump Organization was ever done unless it was run through Mr. Trump. He directed me, as I said in my allocution, and I said as well in the plea, he directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters, including the one with McDougal, which was really between him and David Pecker, and then David Pecker's counsel. I just reviewed the documents in order to protect him. I gave loyalty to someone who truthfully does not deserve loyalty.
He was trying to hide what you were doing, correct?
Correct.
And he knew it was wrong?
Of course.
And he was doing that to help his election?
You have to remember at what point in time that this matter came about, 2 weeks or so before the election, post the Billy Bush comments. So yes, he was very concerned about how this would affect the election.
To help his campaign?
To help him and the campaign. I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
funding. Yes. And it's all the stuff. I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I spoke
to me.
So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
I'll pay the kid.
No. I got... No.
Michael Cohen says that he lied in order to protect you.
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
Let me tell you, I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer. A lawyer who represents a client is supposed to do the right thing. That's why you pay them a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. He is a lawyer. He represents a client. I never directed him to do anything incorrect or wrong. And he understands that. Look, he did some bad things unrelated to me, maybe related to his other clients. I wasn't his only client. He had other clients. He did some bad things. And income tax evasion, I heard about taxi cab, I heard about a lot of things. Now, I'm not reading about any of that stuff, because what he did is he made a deal to embarrass me. In order to embarrass me, they cut his term down. Pretty terrible stuff.
You mentioned dirty deeds in your allocution yesterday. When you think about it, when you look back, did you know what you were doing?
I'm angry at myself because I knew what I was doing was wrong. I stood up before the world yesterday and I accepted the responsibility for my actions. The actions that I gave to a man who, as I also said in my allocution, I was loyal to. I should not be the only one taking responsibility for his actions.
So he's still lying?
Yes.
Do you know why you were loyal to him at the beginning?
No. It was a blind loyalty. It was to a man I admired, but I do not know the answer to it. And I'm angry at myself. My family is disappointed that they have taught me, my mother, father, right from wrong, and I didn't display good judgment.
You call it blind loyalty. The prosecutors seem to suggest it was, Southern District prosecutors, I should add, seem to suggest it was you were being driven by greed and ambition.
No, that's inaccurate. But again, I took responsibility for my actions, but I didn't make my money working for Donald Trump. I had made a substantial amount of money years before working for Donald Trump. And anybody who knows me knows that to be the truth.
President, let's get into, if we can, Michael Cohen. He was your attorney. 3 years he was sentenced yesterday, and it may seem like he got a break because it could have been twice as much, but it's still 3 years in federal prison, $500,000 in restitution. This was someone who surreptitiously recorded you.
Terrible.
Is now known as a criminal liar. Yet this was someone who was in your inner circle.
Yeah. Well, it happens. I mean, look, it happens. I hire usually good people, but it just happened.
Why did you hire Michael Cohen? He was known as a fixer.
I'll tell you what, first of all.
That was his title, a
very
fixer.
low-level work.
Why did you need him?
He did more public relations than he did law, but he did stuff. You'd see him on television. He was okay on television. But years ago, many years, like 12, 13 years ago, he did me a favor. He was on a committee, and he was so responsive and so good, and I said, he's a nice guy. Wait a minute. That was the favor? Years ago.
Because people have been asking, well, what is the favor that he did the president? He was on a committee with you.
He was on a committee. It was a condominium committee many years ago. And he was a very big supporter of mine on that committee. I did a great job. Trump World Tower. It's a very tall building right opposite the United Nations. And when you build a building, people always get together at the end and they make a settlement with the owner. They say the ceiling wasn't painted the right color or something, you know, stuff. Sometimes serious stuff, but in my case, it was a great building. And he was on the committee. I thought he was a great guy. I thought he was really a nice guy. He was very supportive. And I liked him. And he was a lawyer. And because of that, I did it. And you know what? In retrospect, I made a mistake. Because what he did was all unrelated to me, except for the 2 campaign finance charges that are not criminal and shouldn't have been on there. They put that on to embarrass me. They put those 2 charges on to embarrass me. They're not criminal charges, number one. Now that's according, Harris, That's according to the top
And I've interviewed people who've told me this. I mean,
They're
you
not
watch the
criminal.
program,
So
you know.
what happened is either Cohen or the prosecutors, in order to embarrass me, said, listen, I'm making this deal for reduced time and everything else. Do me a favor, put these 2 charges on. They're not
All right.
criminal
I
charges.
want to move on
And they
from
weren't
this.
for President Obama either.
I have one last question.
So what do you say to people, and there are a lot of people who would be watching who are going to be thinking, but wait a second, he lied for so long. Why should we believe him now? What's the answer to that?
What do you mean lied? Lied about what? At the Trump Organization, it's a microcosm of even just the New York real estate market. What did we lie about? It's New York real estate. Yes, it's the greatest product ever created. Is that a lie?
Well, but you pleaded guilty to lying to Congress.
Yes.
So why should we believe you now?
Because the special counsel stated emphatically that the information that I gave to them was credible and helpful. There's a substantial amount of information that they possess that corroborates the fact that I am telling the truth.
So you're done with the lying.
I am done with the lying. I am done being loyal to President Trump. And my first loyalty belongs to my wife, my daughter, my son, and this country.
You worked for him for a long time. I was around you many, many years ago where you seemed to be having fun.
There was a lot of fun going on at the Trump Organization.
Working with Donald Trump.
I enjoyed working with my colleagues there as well.
When did it change?
I can't give you a specific time that it went from point A to point B. It was just a change. I will tell you that the gentleman that is sitting now in the Oval Office, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is not the Donald Trump that I remember from Trump Tower. He's a very different individual.
What's happened to him?
I think the pressure of the job is much more than what he thought it was going to be. It's not like the Trump Organization where he would bark out orders and people would blindly follow what he wanted done. There's a system here. He doesn't understand the system. And it's sad because the country has never been more divisive. And one of the hopes that I have out of the punishment that I've received as well as the cooperation that I have given, I will be remembered in history as helping to bring this country back together.
The special counsel did say that you were doing your best to tell the truth about everything related to their investigation, everything related to Russia. Do you think President Trump is telling the truth about that?
No.
It's a big statement. If he were sitting in this chair right now, what would you say to him?
Lay off Twitter. Run the country the way that we all thought that you would. Be able to take the Democrats, Republicans, bring them together and bring the country together instead of dividing the country.
You think he has ears to hear that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Was yesterday the hardest day of your life, or is that going too far?
It's an understatement.
Yet you feel you've turned a corner.
I know I have.
And when you look back at the Michael Cohen who spent 10 years with Donald Trump, what would you say to him on that first day?
What were you thinking? You knew better. You know better.
How does this end for Donald Trump?
That sort of gets into the whole investigation right now between the special counsel's office, the attorney general's office. You also have the Southern District of New York. I don't want to jeopardize any of their investigations.
And you're still cooperating?
If they want me, I'm here, and I'm willing to answer whatever additional questions that they may have for me.
Right, but so you're saying there are certain areas that you can't get into because you're still cooperating with them?
Correct. And out of respect for process.
Why do you think President Trump is lashing out against you in such a personal way? Daily almost now, calling you weak, calling you a liar. Is he afraid?
Seems like it. That's what he does. That's what he does.
Are you afraid of him?
It's never good to be on the wrong side of the President of the United States of America. But somehow or another, this task has now fallen onto my shoulders, and as I also stated, that I will spend the rest of my life in order to fix the mistake that I made.
How are you going to do that?
Don't know. One day at a time.
So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be, listen,
What financing?
we'll have to pay you. So, no. I got, no.